Episode 6, Trev's Review Show, here on Trev TV. I'm the Trev. Y'all know that. Thanks for tuning in. I don't know if you can tell, we are in the corner of a round room today. And that's only because Trev has some assembly to do. So Trev couldn't really close the door. Look at Trev talking in third person. So Trev couldn't close the door for me to sit in the normal seat. So again, we're in the corner of a round room, but it isn't without its decorations. I didn't know my wife was an artist until she brought that home, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, it's not without its decor. It's a bare part right now. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. I already have one movie review under my belt. So what's better than one? How about two? It's my second movie review. And this one, I didn't have to go out into the theaters to watch. It is the convenience of having Netflix. I'm talking, of course, about The Dirt, the story of the world's most notorious rock band, i.e. Motley Crue, on Netflix. It came on Friday, and I just finally watched it in its entirety twice yesterday. So, today I am going to review what I think of the movie. As I mentioned, The Dirt is based off the book of the same name. And yes, this is a photo from Wikipedia. I no longer own the book. It got lost in a move from Mill Woods once upon a time. But if you haven't read it, read it. It's a good book. Last time I read it was probably 2009. I've read it a few times, but being I haven't read it in about 10 years, my memory's a little foggy as to what exactly points should be in the movie that aren't in the movie. I better put out the disclaimer. I might be giving out spoilers. I'm not gonna spoil it completely, but I am gonna go over some points and some things and whatever else. So if you view even me talking about it as a spoiler, then I will timestamp right here where it's no longer a spoiler and just my opinion. But anyway, having said all that, my brain is here. Wikipedia. This thing has been in production limbo, production hell, since, I want to say 2005, 2006. They've been wanting to make this movie for that long. And it's gone through various hands of who's who and bought the purchases and the rights and whatever else to make it, but they finally made it. Finally. Anyway, film stars Douglas Booth as Nikki Sixx. You might remember Douglas Booth from Game of Thrones. Colson Baker, who you might know as Machine Gun Kelly, as Tommy Lee. It's really good to see Machine Gun Kelly is still alive. I actually thought Eminem killed him, but I digress. Daniel Weber as Vince Neil, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Ewan Rayon as Mick Mars. There's your starting cast. Directed by Jeff Tremaine. I haven't seen too much of his work, but from what I've seen already, it wasn't too bad. Film picks up in 1981, right after the band got together and they're having fun in their apartment, but then they backtrack it to the part where from Nikki Sixx's point of view, he's describing his upbringing and whatever else. Now he ran away from home and got his mom arrested and whatever else. I really didn't think that was too important to the story, but I digress. If it made for the story being what it was, I'm not going to complain about that. But for me, the film really picked up after Mick auditioned. They had a guitar player that I think was just a stand-in, basically. And he was fucking up Livewire, which is, how do you fuck up Livewire? It's an easy song to play. I have no problem playing it. But anyway, I'm not bragging about me. Mick's there for the audition, and he basically looks at the guy and says, hey, there's only room in this band for one guitarist, and that's me, so pack up your toys and go home. And Tommy and Nikki just leave him out to dry. It's like, nope, throwing you under the bus, buddy. And what I also loved about this film is how they broke the fourth wall a lot. And I'll get into an explanation about that. So what I mean by breaking the fourth wall is there was a lot of points where they'd freeze the action in as they went. And one of the characters, Mick, for example, turn around and say, hey, that's not actually what happened. And he's talking about a scene where Doc comes in and punches a guy out because he was giving Nicky attitude because he fell on a mirror, which ended up falling on David Lee Roth, who was doing coke on their couch. But you would just say, yeah, that didn't actually happen. Or the head of Elektra Records, when they had their first gig at the Forum, had no idea Vince was fucking his girlfriend. And then he found out years later, and he turned to the camera and says, yeah, I found out years later, and it hurt. So I just learned, don't bring your girlfriends around Motley Crue, because they'll fuck them. And that's probably very true. But anyway, basically, as soon as Mick comes in and as soon as they get Vince in the fold, it shows how they rise up the LA scene. And the way the movie puts it compared to how the book puts it. The movie says it was basically like almost instantaneous. Like it was 2, 3, 4 shows, but it was almost instantaneous. And they sold out big and whatever else. Then they got the record deal. And they proved what Scarface had said all along. Nothing exceeds like success. There was a lot of coke. A lot of boobs. And for my favorite part, a lot of blatant destruction. Like going through the hotel and just taking out all the lamps with the bass guitar and kicking shit and throwing TVs out the window and destroying a guy's car with whatever you can throw out the window. Lots of destruction. I loved it. So again, as with Lords of Chaos, or any rock film for that matter, it doesn't spend a lot of time in one point in era or in one point of the story. So they don't necessarily say, we're going from 81 to 83. It goes. So you kind of have to know the band to know where they're at this point. You have to know if they've put out Too Fast for Love or if they've put out Theater of Pain or whatever else. But as the highs go, then the lows come. And that's... the lows really started picking up in 1984 after Vince crashed his car with Razzle in the passenger seat, Razzle from Hanoi Rocks. And he did die instantaneously, according to Vince, according to the book, and according to the movie. He died. He was done. But the passengers that were in the other car were terminally damaged. They're still brain damaged. And being he was found guilty of drunk driving and vehicular manslaughter, he got 30 days in jail. And he served 19 of them. Damn. We did have to pay $2.5 million in restitutions, so... But it was at this point where you can really pick up the tension in the band, and everything was just starting to get, how do I put it, strained. And they just weren't on the same page anymore. And it really, really, really shows that. I forgot to mention, too, they had an awesome cameo by a guy who wasn't actually Ozzy. There's a guy who basically nailed the voice of Ozzy and kind of looked like early 80s Ozzy when they were on tour and they caught him, they say, and they show in the movie, he snorted red ants and took a piss on the pool pad, bent down and drank it. And then Nicky's like, yeah, fuck that. And he pisses on the pool pad. And Nicky goes down to drink it, but Ozzy pushes him out of the way and drinks it himself. So it's like, oh. The 80s, they were fucked. We come to more infighting. We get to Tommy's wedding. And then they go to December 23rd, 1987. And for those of you asking, yes, because I didn't have to go to the theater, I just had to stay home. I wrote notes. Come prepared, right? But anyway, Nicky overdoses. And I'm not going to lie. The amount of needles at this point was getting kind of cringy. Because every scene with Nicky after the car crash was needle. And if you want to learn more about Nicky's obsession with needles, pick up the Heroin Diaries. That's a good read, and that is a book I still own. I'll show you. Right there. It's a really good read. You'll learn a lot of shit about what heroin can do to you. But anyway, so needle. He's in the ambulance. Why not give him 2 more needles? 2 shots of adrenaline straight to the heart. He gets up. And it's like, hey, that's enough needles, right? No. How's 1 more? After he just immediately got out of the hospital. Went home, shot up and fell asleep again. Woke up with a needle dangling out his arm. So, more needles, right? Right. And I do remember from the book, they're saying the whole process for Dr. Feelgood, from the start of recording to the end of the tour, it was mentioned in the movie, and I remember it being mentioned in the book, how it was just an absolute nightmare. And that's just only because you had 4 guys living the same lifestyle for so long, and now they're getting clean. And now they're just intolerable. And this is where Vince got a lot of shit at this time. But he wasn't done there. They did the tour, they sold, Dr. Feelgood became their #1 album. They did the tour. By then they hated each other. And it's like there was just no turnaround from that. So something was going to give, right? Right. So anyway, focus. Tour's over. Vince goes home. His wife and his daughter have left. And right there, he's falling into a very deep depression. He misses several rehearsals. And by that time, it's like, okay, no, he's falling out with the band. They let him go. He quits. Depends on who you ask. That's what happened. So that was it with Vince. And then they decided they needed a new lead singer, and they were going to try and carry on that way. And that's when they started getting a lot of we miss Vince. They hired John Kobari for 2 albums. But they don't really focus too much on Kobari or the albums, for that matter. And just focus right on what's going on with the band. Now they're feeling the sales. They don't want to be on the label no more. It gets to the point where Elektra is like, no, fuck it, we're dropping you, whatever else. But not too long after Vince departs the band, his daughter goes into hospital. And this is a low point for me as a parent and as a person. And you see, she kind of has struggles with cancer. I forget exactly which cancer it is. It was a stomach cancer at the age of 4. So right there, Vince goes from bad to worse. This is his rock bottom, where Nikki said him overdosing, coming to life, and then going to shoot up again was his rock bottom. This would probably be Vince's rock bottom. Tommy and Heather, I mentioned before that they had gotten married. I didn't say Heather, I just said Tommy's wedding. But anyway, Tommy and Heather get a divorce because Tommy was spotted out with some porn star, and it made the magazines and whatever else. And then Mick goes for his hip replacement, which is a crock of shit because he went for hip replacement in the 2000s, not the 90s. And by this time, you can see the influence of the grunge scene kicking off. I remember there was one building that had a big Pearl Jam poster in it. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, they pointed that out. But anyway, there's some more and there's some more. This is where they get their material back. They get all the masters from Elektra and whatever else. And they decide, no, they're just going to go get Vince again, try and reconcile, do an album which became Generation Swine, and then that's where the story stopped. It does say right before the end credits that they played again for 20 years, with their last show being December 31st, 2015. But in a nutshell, that was the film. So this is my opinion of it. This is the pros, the cons, and my overall rating. Keep in mind, I've only ever done one review before, so my list of films is not huge, and I'm not sure if I'm going to focus on newer films or just review any film now. But I'll give it a shot either way. Pros. It's nice to see Machine Gun Kelly still alive. I mentioned that earlier, and it was weird, but at the same time, and I hate to say this, that role was perfect for him. Perfect. Him as Tommy was just, he had the energy for it, and he made it believable. I'll say that. It really kept to the style of the times. When it was the 80s, it reminded you it was the 80s. When it was the 90s, it reminded you it was the 90s. And because it didn't really go beyond 97, you didn't see more of what became the 90s. They did mention that the 80s was the worst fucking decade ever. And I agree to disagree. I hated the 90s. They were confusing. But that's me. I'll get into that on a different day, I'm sure. But overall, the atmosphere to it, the cultural reference, essentially what was the pop culture at those times was put in. So that was awesome. For some cons, like I've said before, the timeline felt rushed. It didn't remind you it was going to this year, to this year, to this year, to this year, until it was a big event, i.e. the crash, Nicky's overdose, those things. But I guess that's just the way you can condense a film like that, because there's a lot of history. And I mean, thinking back to the book, there was a lot that they didn't mention that I thought, well, maybe they should have mentioned. I mean, I don't remember exactly everything. Like I said, it's been 10 years since I read the book, but I remember that there was a lot more. It's like, really? What the fuck? They were doing crazy shit. And again, because it doesn't go beyond 97, it doesn't tell you that Tommy quit the band to do Methods of Mayhem. It didn't tell you that they got Randy Castillo in to replace him up until he died from cancer. Then they had another replacement drummer, and they went on hiatus. And then from hiatus, they did Crue Fest. Well, they did Red, White, and Crue. They did Crue Fest. And then they finally signed a cessation of touring agreement, which took effect, December 31st, 2015. It doesn't mean they can't make music together. They just can't tour. So, those are my pros and cons, essentially. I don't really have too many bad things to say. And for the good things, I can't really put in words other than what I've already told you. For the story that they did tell, I have no complaints. Either way. I mean, whether it was rushed, whether it was something that was designed to keep you on the edge of your seat, or something that you just automatically thought, it's like, oh, well, maybe they'll do this, and then they prove you wrong by doing that, i.e. the pool scene. And I should have remembered that. But overall, in my 5 kernels of popcorn out of 5 thing, I'm going to give this one a 3. This one was better than Lords of Chaos by a mile. And it's because it actually stuck to researched material. And I'm not saying that Lords of Chaos wasn't believable, but I'm saying Heroin Diaries. I'm saying The Dirt was better. Was it worth the wait? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, cast-wise, they did the best they could with what they had. And overall, no complaints. There were areas, I thought it could have been a bit longer of a movie. I wouldn't have cared if it was over 2 hours. Maybe they could have told more of their solo careers, or at least Vince's solo career after the breakup. They could have mentioned Pam a little more. I mean, they only stuck to Heather Locklear, but they didn't mention Pam at all. They didn't mention Donna D'Errico, who was Nicky's second wife, I think. And they didn't mention too much of Mick having an outside life. I mean, they presented Mick as an alien, and in a sense he kind of is, but at the same time he's their alien, so you can't hate on that. I give it a solid 3 out of 5. Now is episode 6 of Trev's Review Show here on Trev TV. I want to thank you for tuning in. Your viewership always means so much to me. Always has, always will. You can find Trev on Facebook at Trev's TV. You can find Trev on Instagram at rockstartrev TV. Next episode. Today's the 24th. We'll see about getting 1 or 2 more before April. I know I've got 2 for sure in April. One being the conclusion to mine and Melissa's hockey pool. And then one of a flashback kind of a thing. I don't know what else to call it. A retrospective is what I'll call it for now. but yeah, that's about it. Then I've also got some hockey videos. Like I know I got to go through my division predictions, give the results and my thoughts, and then there's probably going to be the playoff prediction. So there's 4 for April already. But I am taking too much time. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, in the meantime and in between time, you can look out for more videos from Trev. Later.